Hey guys, Nick Ringus here, and as a part of my GGOB coach certification process, I have to shadow a great game coach that they've assigned me to. And thankfully, they assigned me to Kevin Walter, who's been a full time certified coach for over 12 years now. He has countless success stories helping companies implement the great game. And today on our shadowing session, so the story goes and the timeline of things was I met Kevin when we did a kickoff meeting for the great game at a company out in Indianapolis. And I went out there for a couple of days, and with the design team, he was introducing the great game. So since then, now every week we've been helping the business units. There are 3 business units within the company, and I'm shadowing him on these remote calls. They're Zoom calls or Microsoft Teams. And every Friday we have a weekly call where we help them now implement the great game and roll it out to the rest of their company, which probably in about 6 weeks from now, we'll be going back out to Indianapolis to watch as Kevin Walter helps this company with the all team launch. And there's hundreds of employees. They'll all be there, and we'll be rolling out the great game with the help of the design team. We'll be rolling out the great game to the rest of the organization. But during today's huddle, it was the second time they did a practice huddle where they did their forward forecasting and they went through their financial scoreboard. And I want to just pull and let you hear the comments that Kevin Walter made. I think he's just such a great coach. You can tell that he's been doing it a long time. You can tell that he's successful. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the great game inside and out. He also knows people inside and out. He's just excellent at finding champions, learning, knowing when to push people and when to kind of lay off and let them figure things out on their own. And after this second practice huddle, he goes into, and I'll let you hear in a second here, he goes into his notes on the call, things that went well, things that could be better. Let's play those now, and let's hear what Kevin has to say.
All right, I'd like to jump in. This is a great conversation about discovering how do we get these numbers, how do we forecast. Before we started this last segment of discussion, was that we're not asking for plus or minus 1%. All right, let's get to plus or minus 10% and then plus or minus 5% through this process. The best great game companies are plus or minus 5%. I know we're all data people, and that doesn't, we want to be exacting. Here's a tool I'm going to share with you with the notes today. It's a forecast accuracy tool. So hey, here's what our forecast was for week 1. Okay, 169 grand. Here's what it was for week 2, week 3, week 4. Here's what the actual came in at. And each one of these columns is, this 169 grand was 69% of 247. Hey, this was 99%. This was 91. You can put your forecasts in for the first 3 to 6 months and discover trends, and see. All right, I think my forecast is going to be 169,000 week 1, but that's typically we run 30 points off, so I'm going to bump that up to 190 or 200 or something, right? So once we see these trends, we can get there. I'll send that along with today's notes.
So essentially, Kevin is seeing that these people, they really are trying very hard to be accurate with their forecasting, and they're spending way too much time before the meeting and leading up to the meeting, into the week leading up to the meeting, coming up with their forecast, trying to get it to within 1%, that's not something that's feasible for somebody that's just practicing this for the second time. So there was a lot of stress around this with the team. They were working really hard, and Kevin's telling them to just basically relax, give it 5 to 10 minutes each week, and we'll get better as we go. And at the beginning, it will be forecasting, and it will turn in over time. It'll turn into forecasting.
But overall, for this first 3 to 6 months, forecasting is okay. All right, give me your best 5 to 10 minutes. It sounds like some of you might have spent a half an hour on this. No, because we're going to be wrong anyhow. Give me your best 5 to 15 minutes or 5 minutes a line, all right, and throw it out there, and we're going to be learned by being wrong, and that's okay. All right, what's worse is just going same as planned, same as budget, not putting any effort whatsoever into it. Give it a stab.
So these are like weasel words that you look out for when your people are forecasting. Same as budget, same as plan, not putting any effort in, just coming up with the number off the top of their head. He's saying not to do that, but also not to go in too deep with this and put in 30 minutes or an hour into your forecast when it's more about the practice of it and getting good through failing.
Done. We got done with the huddle in 24 minutes. Understandably, once we get in the rhythm, this should take about 20 minutes, 18 minutes. And the rest of the huddle, which is typically allotted for half an hour, can be financial education around one of these lines or a deep dive or how does this impact other things. More education. Great job to all for so many missing people and subs and for getting through that. I really appreciate each of you. Couple of notes for best practices. A couple of people started telling a story before they called out their number. As a participant watching the huddle, I'm waiting for the number. I might not be listening to the story behind it. So if possible, when it gets to your line, call out the number first and then tell the story behind it. Whereas budget, we figured that out. Thanks for just going with it, going with the flow and getting this done. Questioning a forecaster's number. If you questioned somebody's number and in this practice time, awesome. If that was a huddle in front of the whole business unit, sit on your hands until after the huddle and then talk with the line person. When we directly question a forecaster's forecast, then they don't have as much confidence next time. They might feel offended or called out in front of people. Right now, we're trying to learn this all together. Hey, keep asking the questions. Just after launch, if you see a forecast is off, let it ride because it's not going to hurt anybody, and then talk to the person afterwards one-on-one. Totals called out. Great telling the story about the billable being over and how you adjusted it down 100 because of PTO or next month it's going to be whatever the story was. That was awesome. All right. You call out your forecast. Hey, we've got some potential upside if X, Y, or Z happens. Hey, there's a potential downside if X, Y, or Z happens. Awesome.
I love the way Kevin does that. He says, like, what's the story behind that number? He never says, he never questions the number further than that. He always just says, what's the, there's a big variance here from the plan. What's the story behind that number? And that's as much as he goes in terms of giving somebody criticism or grilling somebody. He just asks them to elaborate a little bit as to what's the story behind the number.
In the analysis portion, I typically focus more on the totals. All right, total revenue 112K, even though it's not adding up right or whatever. Consulting's up, but product revenue's down a bit. Okay, go on to the next. Total COGS. Then the total, whatever the next blue things are or whatever. What tells the story of those totals and how they interact to impact our critical number? Now, we didn't have the critical number. The green cells down towards the bottom, the sales cost.
So this is interesting because we didn't have an analyst. I was the one doing the huddles and kind of in charge of the huddles, the huddle leader, we call it, in the Great Game. Here they have other roles during the huddle. They have an analyst at the end who kind of recaps the numbers and what they've heard, summarizes things, and there's somebody that puts the numbers into the sheet. So somebody that's keeping track of the data, as well as the huddle leader. So it's good to get other people involved and give them these roles. And I saw today how he gave this one person the chance to, at the end, be the analyst and summarize what happened. And it was awesome to see. Now he's just giving them a little bit of feedback as to not to get too in depth into the analysis. It just should be top level about revenue, COGS, Just big items, the top three to four things that were most important.
For whatever that is, the ratio.
Yeah.
We didn't have it, but that would be a good time to say, hey, we're in green or we're ahead of pace for, even though it's below our annual goal, we're ahead of pace for February. So basically translate, now that we've been through each line, what are they telling us for the different totals and how they interact? Okay, great. We can unshare. 3 things left today on the agenda. Once again, great job. And I really want to say, just take a moment and stop. We're in week 5. We're getting close to halfway done. I appreciate each and every one of you for your how can this work attitude. Instead of why it won't, how can we adapt it? How can we change it? And asking those questions. Really and truly appreciate it. It's been fun to watch how you guys work in between meetings on certain stuff, like the mini games. Awesome stuff. Makes it easier for me as a coach. So thank you. Physical scoreboard. I have to give this education because it's part of what I do. If there's a place where people can gather at your HQ and it makes any sense at all to have a physical scoreboard, I highly suggest it for when possible. But I always preach, it's nice to have a physical scoreboard because it's in people's faces 7 days a week, if or 6, however many days they go in the office. They see the red numbers, they see the green numbers. Are we ahead or behind? It's always helpful. In your case, it might not apply, but I just want to throw it out there. If you have a physical scoreboard, we suggest binders for people where they have a blank score sheet with the lines on it and the plan or budget, and they can play along as the game progresses.
This is definitely something I want to do in our agency. Since everybody's remote, I want to send them a binder or some printouts that they can follow along with and fill in the numbers as they listen to these huddles. And you'll see why Kevin suggests that in a second here.
There's 3 ways people learn: by hearing, by seeing, or by doing something tactile. So that way we're covering all the 3 different methods of learning. Nothing like people writing numbers down, because then they're also gathering their own history. Now, once again, you guys are a digital company, so I get it if we don't go there, but I have to explain it and teach it. Because we've got people with binders, 10 years thick on the monthly sheets.
So imagine what that does for his people in the other company that has a binder with 10 years of data in it into their forward forecasting. I'm sure they're great at forward forecasting and predicting what each month will look like within their numbers because they have so much data to go back to, and they've been doing this for so long. All right, so that's everything that I wanted to play for you. I thought that it was just an awesome job of Kevin to recap and to coach these people, to encourage them that they're doing a good job, that they're on the right track. Some of it can be frustrating, especially with the other business unit. They were trying to get way too accurate with their forecasting. They are data scientists after all, so they want to be within 1% on their forecasts. But he's saying to start out, you want to be like 10% plus or minus on your forecast. Don't even worry about how accurate you're going to be at first. So again, just if you're not familiar, within the great game of business, during our weekly huddles with our people, we go through our big financial scoreboard and we go down basically a P&L. And each line item owner will predict or give you a forecast of what that number will look like for the month we're in. So every week we're forecasting what that month will look like, and it gets more and more accurate as the weeks go on in the month. And then finally at the end of the month, we have the finals come out, the final numbers, and we compare to our forecast. And we ask, about what was the story behind this number? It wasn't as close to your forecast. And we let people kind of explain what happened if a forecast was off. So this is the second time running through for these 2 business units. This is the second time running through a practice huddle and forward forecasting. They're doing a great job. It took us a while, but this really is the secret sauce behind the great game of business, this forward forecasting and having people predict what their number will look like. They own that number. They try to make it as healthy as possible by either cutting costs or improving revenue, depending on the line. And they do their best to hit their targets in their plan. So it's what it's all about. It gets everybody engaged and starting to think like owners. It's my favorite part of the great game. It's the part that we saw the biggest impact from right away. We found expenses and COGS in our P&L and our scoreboard that we were able to cut right away with no impact to the client whatsoever. It was just things that we were throwing money away at. So it was so impactful. It's why we went from making $30,000 in the first 6 months in profit to adding $255,000 in the last 6 months in profit is mostly because of this forward forecasting and tightening our belts and making sure that we weren't spending money where we shouldn't be. And it's really out of everything, I heard the best feedback from our team was from this forward forecasting, and a lot of people said they felt empowered. They felt as if they really knew what was going on, and they felt a new sense of control and excitement around the business because of this forward forecasting. Opening the books, teaching the numbers, giving each person a line item or having them step up and say, hey, I want to take that line, and then really owning it. I have so many examples of people that have stepped up and have delivered and either cut costs or increased revenues to help the company succeed and to help the company hit its plan. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. That was a little bit of insight into my day and shadowing the great Kevin Walter, certified GGOB coach. And remember, as always, people support what they help create. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again for watching.